What's up, YouTube? Ryan Panny here. Hope you guys are doing reasonably well. It's time for our final 2020 list. Don't worry, we're almost done. I actually had a pretty great year, but I know there's just a lot of people out there who very much did not and are looking forward to turning the page and starting over, which is what's beautiful about New Year's, even though it's totally arbitrary and man-made. You know, it's weird because between the metal list I did and this one, they're kind of flip-flop in the sense that most of the great metal records came out in the second half of the year, but the vast majority of stuff I considered for this list, it actually came from the first half. Like this year started out really strong. And it's not to say that the broader music world has slowed down necessarily. It's just that my personal tastes, I guess, haven't lined up as much with the release calendar since July. Still, got a great mix of genres here. There's a little bit of something for everyone, which is how it always happens, even though like that's not by design. I'd put fucking 10 rap records in a row if that's my favorite records, but that's how it came out. And either way, I'm really happy with the list, and I really hope that at least one of these records I can turn you on to, because that's really the whole point of this, right? So, number 10, Jesus Christ, I have a hard time even saying this with a straight face. Taylor Swift, Folklore. I have spent so much time and so many years of my life hating Taylor Swift's fucking guts that I'm really confused right now. I do not know how to reconcile these last couple records. I don't know at what point I have to come out of the Swiftie closet, but we're pretty close. To be fair, this record was largely co-written with Aaron Dessner of The National, and his stylistic fingerprints here aren't exactly subtle, but it turns out that Taylor's narrative-heavy style of songwriting, while it might have come off sounding like rom-com trash with the instrumental arrangements of like Speak Now or the one before that, Fearless, that same style pretty much ends up fitting this folky, stripped-down vibe of this album like a fucking glove. And to her immense credit, Taylor does come off so mature and so wise, and the lyrics, the way they're written, it's in a very artful and in some cases almost literary fashion. It's to the point where this Taylor Swift is someone you cannot even recognize in comparison with her older material. And that would be a cool thing for any artist to pull off, but considering how much I just hated Taylor Swift in the past, this transformation on this record is just really exciting. I'm telling you, this album just really sweeps you away. And not to reference another self-important narcissistic celebrity, but kind of in the same way that John Mayer's Paradise Valley does. Here, with this album, you feel like you're walking through the woods on a crisp fall day, and you're teleported into these incredibly rich and detailed narratives. In the case of a song like the spacey, reverbed out This Is Me Trying, you're also teleported into a different sonic universe sometimes. It's so good, especially for a blockbuster pop artist. Favorite tracks here, Illicit Affairs, I love, Betty, and This Is Me Trying. Number 9, a record that I'm quite frankly surprised stayed in from my mid-year list, but it just kept coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. I couldn't ignore it. New Abnormal by The Strokes. It's just that what's confusing to me is that this is one of my favorite indie bands of all time, but it's not their best record. Like, in their catalog, I'd probably put it, I don't know, 3rd or 4th. But then again, who gives a shit? Like, what's the 4th best Leonardo DiCaprio movie? This band still rules. I mean, the wonderfully downtrodden Why Are Sundays So Depressing? That's probably my favorite song on the record. Not the Same Anymore, Adults Are Talking. Just that way that Julian Casablancas, the frontman, just sort of slurs his way through the hooks almost. They all sound like classic Strokes songs. And then I really dig the lovably corny single here, Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus, with its musical and lyrical homage to the 80s. It's a really great pace changer for the record. And also Ode to the Mets, that's a trademark droopy Strokes ballad to close the record out. So this record, it might be unassuming, and it might be an easy record to gloss over, but it turns out that when you listen to it a bunch, the songs really stick with you. Favorite tracks, I don't know. Sundays Are So Depressing, Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus, Ode to the Mets. Number 8, Run the Jewels 4. It's Killer Mike and LP versus the fucking world once again. I gotta tell you, these guys, despite putting together some genuinely great bars, they have this fucking angry punk rock energy to them that just feels unique to hip hop, even like 7 years after they already became critical darlings. This record is also a fascinating case study of how cultural context can pretty drastically impact your listening experience when a record comes out. And that's something that artists have no control over, but it is what it is. Fucking thing came out during the riots, and the subject matter could not be more appropriate. What is more 2020 than Killer Mike railing against the apathy of Twitter warriors? You know, and plus you have capitalism, sex work, military-industrial complex, race issues. It's all addressed here in blunt force. And it all happens alongside some banging beats, some great collaborators like Pharrell and 2 Chainz. Favorite tracks on here, Ground Below, Out of Sight, and Walking in the Snow. Pet Shop Boys' Hotspot was such an awesome record to kick off 2020 in that first month, and I still love it. I talked about in my last video, Happy People is my song of the year. And you know, for a group that is most known for such a specific, easily parodied version of European synth pop, this is a remarkably well-rounded record. You have like the full-on acoustic-laden ballad Burning the Heather. You have a song like Dreamland, which sounds like it should be on Introspective or one of those 80s albums. New wave vibes in the song Hoping for a Miracle. In addition to having songs that you fall in love with, you walk away from Hotspot feeling like you had a really complete experience. Favorite tracks on here, Happy People, Dreamland, Burning the Heather. I really love the Chris Stapleton record Starting Over. You know, as much as I complain about metal tokenism amongst the hipster music writers, country arguably gets it worse. Like there's 3 people that you're allowed to respect if you're a music writer. There's Sturgill Simpson kind of plays rock music now, but he's one. Chris Stapleton and Devin Dawson too. And look, I'm as guilty as anybody on this one. This record in 2020 was every music commentator's way of proving that they're not biased against the genre. But you know what? Chris Stapleton has earned that because his music has such authentic country songwriting roots. There's traces in this record of outlaw country, there's folk, and there's blues. But he does have this undeniable accessibility to his twang. So unlike an artist like Luke Bryan, which everyone kind of laughs at, someone like Chris Stapleton is honestly and seriously crossing over to real music fans. Personally, I love the gritty moments on here like Hillbilly Blood and Watch You Burn as much as I do the pop-infused stuff like Maggie's Song and of course the opening title track, which carries with it such a sweet but powerful sentiment about having the courage to start over in search of a better life, and especially to do it alongside someone you love. Chris Stapleton on this record, he is just the perfect example of an artist being able to successfully cross over without losing an ounce of his integrity. Favorite songs on here, Starting Over, Devil Always Made Me Think Twice, and Hillbilly Blood. And now, cracking the top 5 is Joywave with Possession. Same thoughts apply here that did back in the mid-year when I praised this record. It's just that even though it's so clearly an alt-rock record, to me, songs like Coming Apart and Blast Off and Fear are just great straight-up hard rock songs. And since good hard rock is so difficult to come by in the modern era, I'll gladly take this record. Although I will say, as the year has gone on, it is actually the less rock and roll moments that I've started to gravitate towards more and more. Like the great title track with that epic falsetto vocal. Blank Slate has this bouncy rhythm that I can't seem to get enough of. But either way, having a great alternative record that also delivers some genuine explosive hard rock, that's a great thing to have in your life. Favorite tracks? I don't know. It changes so much. No Shoulder, title track, and Fear. Number 4 is some bubbly dance pop magic. Kiesza's Crave album. I'm sure it sounds really lazy to make this comparison, but this record does, for me, bring a lot of the same energy and give me a lot of the same feelings that Carly Rae's Emotion record did 5 years ago. That was one of my top 5 records of that year. It's just, as someone who listens to so much metal and old school hip hop and just generally angry shit with the fucking masculinity factor turned up to 10, when I can just get lost in the buoyant feminine energy of a pop record like this, it's so much fun. I mean, songs on this record like All the Feelings with that snappy 80s influenced production, or Sky Ain't the Limit, which brings some electro into the fold, and also the explosive opener Run Renegade, these are just knockout high energy pop tunes that just make you want to get down with your bad self. Kiesza is a talented vocalist too, and this record has such a tight half-hour runtime that you're not going to get bored of it. It's the ultimate pop record. Favorite tracks, All the Feelings, Love Me With Your Lie, Run Renegade. Grimes is up next with Miss Anthropocene. I absolutely love her futuristic take on what's really alternative pop music. The Radiohead influence on this record, both the OK Computer and Kid A eras, is palpable. Not overwhelming, but palpable. Her voice is just so eerie yet angelic. It's got a real unique tone to it. It also takes on almost an instrumental quality and recedes into the arrangement on some songs, which is actually pretty common for electronic music. But then there are other instances on here where she really steps out front like a pop star, like the pure 90s song Delete Forever. So the fact fact that she's able to strike that balance is I'm sure partially why she occupies such a singular space within both the music critic world and also just the wider world of celebrity. She's a fascinating individual, and I'm glad I was able to finally get into one of her records, because Visions was the one that everyone else loved, and it was just I just couldn't figure it out. But this one, I'm on board. Favorite tracks: My Name Is Dark, Violence, and You'll Miss Me When I'm Not Around. Number 2, up in the ranks since the mid-year. I just kept coming back to it. Tame Impala with Slow Rush. Simply put, one of the best bands to come out of the wider alternative music landscape in the 21st century. I, for one, have really enjoyed watching their sound morph album to album, from something that was a lot crunchier and more indebted to 70s rock in their early days to this smooth psychedelic sound they have now. A lot of what made Currents one of my favorites in 2015 still applies here. But what made me particularly fall in love with this album is just the absolutely tortured ruminations and anxiety-ridden lyrical passages about the passage of time, and particularly how it affects your own self-perception. This album is so wary and so beaten down emotionally. It's quite an insular and introspective album, but for all of its emotional chaos, it's got a very likable, refined sound, to the point where I have recommended this album this year to many a new Tame Impala listener. What else can I say? Kevin Parker did it again. Favorite tracks: On Track, one of my favorite songs of the year, Glimmer, and Breathe Deeper. And my number 1 has not moved. Purity Ring with Womb. I fucking love this album. It defined the year for me in so many ways. That smooth, spacey, futuristic sound of the production, combined with Megan James's ethereal and almost erotic vocals, it was just such a welcome presence in my life. Like, I think as soon as I'm done shooting this, I'm just gonna go listen to it again. Listening to Purity Ring is like a more pleasurable form of meditation. And what's funny about this record is that even though the tempos and the feels do change, like on the more upbeat end you have Stardew, and on the more kind of ambient and contemplative end you have Femia, it has the same effect on you throughout the runtime. This is where the beautifully subjective nature of these lists really shines through, because this is the album I listened to the most, it's the album I enjoyed the most, so it's number 1. It's really that simple. Favorite tracks: Stardew, Femia, and Sinew. And just like that, 2020 is mercifully, for most people, over. When times are bad, all I can hope for is a great soundtrack to get me through it. Definitely had that this year, and it was, from kind of a bird's eye, or maybe more of a hindsight perspective, it was interesting to watch a lot of things about the world shift. The way musicians make their livings, especially in stuff like metal, where it's not necessarily a guarantee. The way we all approach work, I think we're gonna come out of this a lot stronger. At least that's what I hope. So of course, before I sign off here, you guys gotta put in the comments what were your top 10 albums. It could be metal and non-metal, because I know I'm like the only person who does that, but whatever you see fit to include in the discussion. And on my end, I hope that at least one of these records turns you on, and it's something that you would have otherwise not listen to, because that is why I make these. And as always, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and are not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so by clicking right over here, as well as checking out all of the music-related content that I publish here on a weekly basis. I really appreciate you guys watching, liking, disliking, and just engaging in any fashion. Twitter, Instagram handle @RyanPannyMusic. Again, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in 2021.